No email? Wait, wait. Yeah. For the, wow. Yeah. Back then, I did, about, you were talking about them being here in 1812 and whatever. Wow. That's good. Probably need to join her. I will learn to. Have it. Yeah. Stop. I know.
Hey, Dan. Well, if they vote,
Thank
I'll vote
Tell
on,
people.
does it?
Tell me when I'm good. Tell me right now. But
They'll talk. Hello, sir, how are you?
I was like, I better get up and go.
Oh, I better left my glass.
I
Oh,
had to go home and change.
hurt your finger. For that, I had it. That's right.
I'm glad.
Um, I married it. Hey. So,
Left my glass. They were reading glasses and it went, oh no, oh, your glass case. Oh, you shaved?
oh,
Really glass?
what happened? Garbage.
Oh,
See, a lot of,
everybody's blurred. Well, I gotta go out, I misplaced, I go to Miami and I really got some more about 4 months.
Yeah, because
yeah,
I almost broken, so got some reading glasses.
what I've been,
Well, I can do okay, I just have to be close.
it don't
My
matter
eyes
what
are
you
gonna
check.
cuss. Thank you
Shame,
anyway.
that's how it happened.
Just fine, Peggy, how you doing?
now the mayor's here, but
And you like to lost it. All the time. No, I'm. Yeah. I saw all this. Well, it was short. That's what, I didn't time it, but that's such. Point. two of us.
How you doing? Starting to recover. Friend?
Oh, yeah.
Had,
They did have fun. They threw the candy too fast.
yeah.
They had so much fun. Every
Silent. Oh. Now, so is Jenny? Yeah, she'll be.
man.
Call them back. Somebody's got it unlocked. I'll need that later.
Don't worry, there's probably footage. Find it.
You give that back here. I'm sure. No, I didn't bring the war.
Sorry.
Wow.
Well, you were offered it, baby.
No, I was asking.
Let's call this meeting to order. I believe most of us are here. We have an open meeting with some speakers who have asked to be recognized. Are there any items to add to the agenda from council?
Yes, ma'am.
You are recognized, Councilwoman Rice.
Okay, I would like to add a discussion about a backup member for the TDC. I would also like to add, I have before you a proposed calendar, just a discussion about it. And then to discuss the idea of using a parliamentarian, and also to discuss MSM reports obligations.
There I have.
Yes, sir. You are recognized, Councilwoman Burden.
I would like to speak on our situation with our city manager.
Can you speak into the microphone?
I would like to bring up our city manager and planning position, speak on that. And I'd like to speak just a little bit about building bridges. That's not speaking of concrete bridges. That's speaking of bridges between citizens and citizens.
Anything else?
That's all.
Councilwoman Holly, you're recognized.
I do remember that the city council had voted on replacing the flooring in City Hall, and I'd just like to have an update on that. See where we are with that taking place.
Yes, ma'am.
There was one other thing, but I can't.
Appreciate you being here. I know you're still recovering from your surgery, Councilwoman Holly. Is there anything else from any other council members? Seeing none. I'll just remark on these items by saying that TDC backup will be Councilman Jordan. And as the mayor, I can make that appointment. My basis for making that appointment is if, to the extent there's a TDC meeting that Councilwoman Holly can't attend, Councilman Jordan has the most flexible schedule. I've heard remarks from various council persons about their 9-to-5 jobs, and I want to respect that. Regarding the comment about parliamentarians, Councilwoman Rice, rather than discuss that today, I think we should defer to our city attorney, and the city manager and I will discuss this with the city attorney about the best way to manage the meetings. Any feedback any council person has about a parliamentarian, I ask that you email that to the city manager so that it can be taken up between the city manager and the city attorney. That will help us be more efficient today, because those thoughts are important, and we need to be guided by our city attorney in that effort. Regarding the other items, 2 of y'all have mentioned something to do with Main Street Milton. I say that because I believe when you talk about building bridges, Councilman Jordan, you're talking about Main Street Milton, am I right?
Yes.
Main Street Milton deserves its own meeting. I don't believe we can address what's going on with Main Street Milton today.
Thank you, Mayor.
And the other items that have been sought to be added to the agenda would be a Tuesday, every meeting happening on a Tuesday, and talking about the planning director versus city manager position, and also the update on the flooring. I agree those items can be added to the agenda. Is there anything else?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
According to the meeting rules, it doesn't look like that we can limit discussion at the committee of the whole.
If you don't want to limit discussion, we can be here quite a long time. I'm asking that you be aware of a recommendation that I have, which I'll be glad to listen to the city attorney on this. If you want to debate about parliamentary procedures, wouldn't it be more efficient to do that if the city manager and the city attorney look at our history as a city, and y'all provide your feedback so that we can have an informed discussion about that at a later time? Because that's new. It's not something that any of us have prepared to talk about here today. And it's an interesting topic that deserves appropriate attention, but is tonight the right time to do it?
I didn't want to debate it. I just wanted to introduce it.
All right, then. Have you already introduced it, or is there more to say?
I have more to say.
Please proceed.
Okay. So what I would like to introduce is the idea of maybe using our city attorney as a parliamentarian to help keep order and prevent hard feelings. A parliamentarian would also maintain the appearance of impartiality. We have had several meetings now where council members have used the word unfair, and we had one that got up and left. So I think this is something we're in need of, and I don't know if our city attorney could provide that service for us.
I'll ask the city attorney to take that up with the city manager. I do not know of any times members have got up and left the meeting since November. Do you have one in
Yes, ma'am,
mind?
the last meeting.
Which one?
Councilman Powell left the meeting.
To use the restroom? I didn't.
Yes.
Thank you, Councilman Powell. And that actually brings me to a good point. I'm glad you're bringing this up. I would like to know if any of the council members have any issues with me. I'd like to know about them. Let's go ahead and get them resolved. So I'll go ahead and poll the council about that now. Councilwoman Smith, do you have any issues with me in the way that I'm addressing the meetings?
None comes to mind at this moment.
And if you think of any, I welcome the feedback.
I started to say, it's not like I feel uncomfortable picking up the phone and calling you. Wouldn't be the first time.
Yes, ma'am. Councilwoman Johnson?
No, I have no concerns about meeting.
Could you put that in the microphone, Councilwoman Johnson?
Oh, yes, thank you, I'm sorry. Madam Mayor, I have no problems with the procedures as they are handled during these meetings and how you handle them.
And if you should have any concerns or issues, I hope that you will feel comfortable talking to me about that.
Yes, I feel very comfortable in speaking to you or any other member under the right rules and regulations with any council meetings members during this time.
ma'am. Councilman Powell, are there any issues between us?
Not between us. I think there's some ways that we could run the meetings more effectively, but I think if we're having an opportunity to give our feedback, I'll provide it to the city manager.
Okay, so to the extent there are better ways to run the meeting, it sounds like Councilman Powell will be sending his feedback to the city manager for further discussion with the city attorney in connection with Councilwoman Rice's suggestion. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. What about you, Councilwoman Holly? Do you have any issues with me and how I've run the meetings?
Just agree with Councilman Powell, and I'll do the same.
Thank you, ma'am. Councilman Jordan?
I'm just plumb happy.
Well, if there's any issue that needs to be taken up with me, I want to welcome it so that it can be resolved. Councilwoman Rice, do you have an issue with me?
This isn't an issue specifically with you. It's exactly what I said, that there's been comments expressed in the meeting of, the word unfair has come up a couple times. And a parliamentarian's purpose has really, it's no offense to you, and that's not the way it should be seen. It's to keep order and prevent hard feelings and maintain the appearance of impartiality. I'm sorry that you sound offended. That wasn't the intent.
I don't feel offended, so
Okay.
I'm sorry you're interpreting my voice as sounding
Okay.
offended.
Okay.
I want to get to business, and I want to understand if there's an issue. I want to get it out there on the table so it can be resolved. That's important to me. So that's why I'm asking.
Okay.
And the fact that you would need a parliamentarian to run the meeting when the mayor as chair runs the meeting suggests to me reasonably that you question how I'm doing it. So I'm trying to be open to the feedback that I feel like you're trying to give me.
I appreciate that. I didn't mean to run the meeting, just to be on the sidelines to address any issues that may come up. You would, of course, would still be chair.
Councilwoman Hathaway, are there any issues that you have with me about the way the meetings have been conducted?
No, ma'am, nothing comes to mind.
And if it does,
If there's any issues, I feel comfortable talking to you or talking with the city manager.
I thought you would. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So,
Can I, something?
yes, ma'am.
And this is not for debate or questioning, but I want the people to understand, if you've never been through rotator cuff tendon surgery repair, you don't bounce back in 2 days. And I had also been in contact with TDC. They were totally aware, and they're okay with me not being at those meetings. I'm not sloughing my responsibility that I agreed to do, and I will be there, and I am in contact back and forth with them pretty much on a weekly basis.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you for that report.
I just wanted Councilman Rice to understand that I'm just not interested or not attending the meetings.
Thank you for that report.
May I
And
respond to that? Because that wasn't my intent. I didn't think she wasn't not interested. It's just important that we have representation there, because this is about spending tourist tax dollars.
we all agree with that. And I certainly never thought you weren't interested, Councilwoman Holly, but it is good to have a backup. And so
Yes, I appreciate that.
I appreciate that being pointed out, that I had not yet appointed the backup.
Can I make a comment? If there's, Councilwoman Holly, if she's not able to be at a meeting, is there any way that she can let the council know so that we can decide, to have somebody there in attendance?
Well, I've just asked Councilman Jordan to be the
Okay.
backup.
Okay.
Will you accept that?
I will alter my schedule if it need be to be at those meetings.
Thank you. I know your schedule's more flexible than some others, so I appreciate you.
Thank you, Councilman Jordan.
Okay, so, Mr. Jorgensen, it's not listed this way, but don't we want to invite the speakers who have come to speak at this point before we take up our agenda items?
I would advise that, Mayor.
Okay. So rather than talk further on some of the items that council have brought up for discussion, I'd like to go ahead and open up the meeting to our speakers who've come to join us. I have two forms in front of me. The first one is from, I think, Ms. Franklin of Old Plantation Court. Please join us and state your name and address just for the record.
Sure.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Jaslyn Franklin, 5872 Old Plantation Court. I'm coming in
Yes, ma'am.
regards to last month.
Yes, ma'am.
I sent emails and made calls, and today I've heard from no one.
Who did you send the emails to?
The city manager.
Okay. Well, have you been able to set up a meeting with him to talk
I
further?
received no contact.
I'm sure the city manager has an answer.
Mayor, she did send two emails, both contained pictures. I thanked her for the emails.
I sent 3.
Well, two in regard to some pictures that showed construction debris in the roads in and around Magnolia Bend. Then she sent another email early February 8th, as a matter of fact. In that email, she outlined the continuing issues in regard to the builders of that subdivision. At that time, I forwarded that email to a member of staff and asked him to respond. He was waiting for a response from the chief building official of Santa Rosa County, Rhonda Royals, with the reply. And as a matter of fact, he received that reply, and I have it in my possession, on Tuesday, February 19th at 4:19 p.m. And he hasn't had an opportunity to share that information. And I'll be happy to share that information with the council or
Franklin,
Miss Franklin.
that'd be great.
Would you like me to do that now?
I don't see any reason why not. And I also wanted to ask you, Ms. Franklin, have you ever had a chance to talk to a lawyer to help you directly with this?
I would defer not commenting on that because I have sought counsel
Okay.
regarding D.R. Horton. But as it relates to this issue, there's numerous issues, and we've contacted the city, so I would like to understand what is the turnaround time for someone returning or reaching out. I think it's my turn to speak, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
No one's here adversarial to you.
Okay. So I just wanted to make sure because I was still speaking. So when we talk about some of the violations still that's going on in our area, there's open power boxes. I see the code enforcer drive by and make a circle in the neighborhood, but never get out of the car. And there is literally open power boxes next to the retention pond with the plug sticking out with a black tape around it saying warning. I think it's supposed to have a cover on it. So things like that. So we're not emailing or coming with our concerns just to be complainers. But as you can see, we have children in our neighborhood, and not getting a response back from the people that we elect to represent us is a little concerning.
Yes, ma'am, and we want to give you a response, and it sounds to me that city staff was trying to get information to give you the best response it could, and it didn't come until just about a day and a half ago, 2 days ago. But I wasn't aware of it, so your elected officials haven't been updated yet by city staff, so we're not trying to avoid you, and I'm glad you're here tonight to give us your update. As far as code enforcement, was that something you alerted the city manager to in one of your emails?
Yeah, I sent him emails the next day. They picked up big cinder blocks, I guess, cut the cement and left it in the middle of the main road to our community for days.
It sounds like this might be something for the administration. Councilwoman Holly, who's in charge of administration committee, to take up with Mr. Jorgensen as well.
If I could, I'd like to respond, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
She did send pictures of some construction debris that was found in the roadway. The construction debris was cinder block. The cinder block was derived from a curb cut that was made to accommodate a new driveway for construction of a new home. A contractor is given a reasonable period of time to clean up that debris once it's created. Further, the subdivision itself is in a 2-year warranty period. That warranty period expires the end of July. Some of the issues that she's raised with D.R. Horton concerning items like cracked sidewalks, et cetera, become part of an inspection punch list, which is done by zoning official who puts together that punch list, and before we'll accept the subdivision as subject to our maintenance and part of our system, all of those items must be addressed. Now, they're given 2 years to complete first the subdivision and second the punch list, and we're in the process of developing that list now. And on area drainage, that was an inspection that was conducted at our request by Rhonda Royals and her staff. and I have a response. I don't know that it's necessarily the response that she would like to hear, but nonetheless, it is the result of their work, and that did come late on Tuesday.
Do you want to read
And
it
then-
into the record so we're
well,
all updated?
I can. It said, our site inspector did go by the Magnolia Bend properties and said it was hard to tell, but the house behind the complainant's property definitely slopes away from the house towards the complainant's lot. However, when you go to the front of that same home, it appears to come to the road. There are drainage swales that have been established in the side yard, which means when you look at the yard, it appears as if the yard slopes to the rear, but the swales may be functioning as they're designed. The only way to tell for sure is if someone shoots grades on both yards, but I suspect the complainant's lot is probably slightly lower and is now holding their own stormwater. So their lot is not draining, but the water that's found there is derived from the precipitation that occurs and is emanating from their land. Please let me know if I can provide you with additional information. So that was the result of that work. And on the electrical boxes and other aspects, that power can't be on, but those items require someone who is a building inspector and has skills in that specific area. Code enforcement officer is not in a position to act, although they can inform others who may be. And that would be Santa Rosa County through an interlocal agreement we have with the county to provide those services to us. Now, since she first appeared, it has been approximately 4 weeks. 1 week after her appearance, I waited until a rainy day, and I went out on the subject property and went to those drainage swales and observed the area drainage myself in a way of trying to determine whether or not that system was functioning as it was designed. It wasn't clear to me. I came back.
You went to my home
I
or
went
someone
to that
else's home?
entire area. I walked up and down that fence line. I had another party with me. I have other people here who watch me come through
Would
the
have been
front door.
good to know, because
Well,
I was there. I never seen you before.
Ma'am,
there.
I apologize you didn't observe me when I did it, but I
No.
did it.
Well,
Ma'am,
I'm
I did.
sorry that it seems from your responses that you don't trust that the city will take your concerns seriously, and I really am sorry to hear that. The best thing I can think of to do right now is to suggest, to see if council is interested in this, to ask the city attorney to work with the city manager to see if there's anything else we can do more quickly beyond what the city manager and his staff is working on doing. In other words, what options are available to the city to address this resident's concerns, and if there's a more efficient option, or if there is a more if there's an option that would help resolve these problems in a way that will promote more trust from this resident, then that's an inquiry the city attorney and the city manager can make together if the council wants to authorize that to be done. Otherwise, I'm still trying to understand what can be done differently.
May I speak, please?
Sure.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
So the trust part is not relevant right now. My issue is that this gentleman, Mr. Jurgensen, saw me today, did not even remember that I sent an email or wasn't even inclined. He went back to his office and was doing something with the other gentleman, I guess the city planner. So I just want to make sure that we're transparent about the things that are happening, because if he did go to my home and the next step was for them to have this drainage review or someone come out who's credentialed to do that, then just let the residents know. Be transparent about the actions that are happening. I don't want anything done fast. That's why we have the issues done in our community right now, because they rushed and did the homes and it wasn't done properly. So if it takes time, that's fine. I'm not here to debate on what he did or did not do. I don't know. That's why I'm here today. So as far as building trust, with me is trust is being transparent. And the fact that I had to run into him today in the hallway and he prepared himself for the meeting today, but I have no information, that's the subject on which there's no communication with the residents. That's why I'm here today. So I wouldn't come here if I didn't trust you all. I could just take other actions, right? But I'm here to communicate as a concerned citizen.
I appreciate that, and we want to be responsive. And so I hear you saying that you are not aware of what actions are being taken because you haven't been given an update, and that's why you're here a month later to see what's happening.
Exactly. All I got was a thank you. That's how I know he got my email.
Okay.
Ms. Mayor? Ms. Mayor?
Yes, sir. And
I
then
would like-
Councilwoman Holly. I'm sorry, Hathaway.
I would,
I was just going to say, I would like him to finish what he was saying, just so that I know what's going on. I feel like he was kind of cut off.
Oh,
If
yeah,
you don't
I'm
mind.
sorry. Yes, sir. Please, Mr. Jorgensen. I was trying to make sure I understood the
Thank you.
resident.
Well, I apologize for not being clear as it relates to the activities we were undertaking. We were waiting to have something substantive to report before we attempted to. The first information I think that would have constituted that type of material was received late on Tuesday. I did ask Mr. Milstead to respond to the inquiry on February 8th. He too was waiting until there was something more substantive. I apologize for that. But I took your complaint, your concern seriously enough that I was out there on a rainy day. I did get soaked. That didn't bother me. I was trying to determine if there was area drainage. I watched the wood wick the water. I looked at the water standing in the yard. So I took it seriously. It has been a month, but it was a week before that occurred. It was then a follow-up with the chief building official. It took 2 weeks for them to get their people out there and take a look at it. That's how we've got to where we're at. We haven't given up on this. We haven't stopped on this. We're not done with this. There is some limits to what we can do while the subdivision is in a warranty period. The builder is given that period of time to make corrections to defects that are identified. We're part of what you've expressed in some other issues that are found there are defects. We will require those defects to be addressed before we'll accept that system into our system. So that's where we're at, and I'll keep that line of communication open. Let us continue our work.
May I?
Councilman Jordan?
could I address,
Yes.
I did not understand, I did not hear you say what your observation was. You started to tell us what your personal observation was, but you did not complete that.
My
statement.
personal observation was much like is identified by one of the inspectors, the site inspectors for Santa Rosa County. It appears as if you have water pooling. That water that is pooling is being derived from precipitation falling on that area of the land. The swales appear to be moving the water to the street. Whether they're doing that adequately or not can only be determined from taking elevations at grade chutes of elevations to determining the slope of the land. That was Ms. Royal's recommendation late on Tuesday. That's a conversation prior to hearing from her I had with the Public Works Director, where I indicated to him that I felt that would be probably what we would end up having to do. It appears as if we're there.
Our responsibility.
Yeah, it's a responsibility that we will take on.
I think we need to be really diligent with this because D.R. Horton is in the southern part of the county, having lots of issues with the county. We need to keep on top of it.
Well, we appreciate builders that develop subdivisions, but only in accordance with the terms and conditions that are described in the plat that's approved and the conditions applied to that. And we'll require them to do what they've identified they would at the time the approval was provided. So that's where we're at. Keep in mind they're the nation's largest builder. They're going to go build homes somewhere.
Councilwoman Rice?
So, Ms. Franklin,
Yes.
nice to meet you.
You as well.
I'm on the Stormwater Committee, and I just want to let you know that this past weekend, Saturday, myself and Mr. Jorgensen went with me, and it wasn't his obligation to go with me. I had asked him if he would. We went on it was a stormwater tour about green infrastructure, and if it is what he's pointing out, that maybe your soil's not draining as quick as it could, maybe some of that's going on, then this may be a good situation for some green infrastructure. I would like to talk to you further about that. I'll get if you put your number on a speaker form, I'll get that and I'll call you.
Sure.
Madam Mayor, may I speak?
It's here. I can share it with you.
Yes, definitely.
Councilwoman Johnson?
Yes. Appreciate you coming, sharing information with us. I just want to bring back the point that data collection is a very vital step in solving problems. And collecting the data, or it would take maybe more than one step or two or three, you really got to get a sound hypothesis. And I continue to hear him say, maybe it might have been this or that. So you got to generate enough information before then we can go to a bigger step to the construction people. So I think what it is that we are working, and he wants to be very detailed in his analysis, and therefore each thing that might be wrong could be a part of reflecting back upon the major problem in the first place. Mr. Jorgensen is very detailed in his analysis, and the little point with the code enforcement, even though they did see that, but you're right, you know, they're not electrical engineers or anything, can't tamper, can't touch. But I think that was also recorded as well. So something is happening, but sometimes it takes just a little while. And maybe he had not gotten a chance to get back because perhaps in his investigation, he wanted to get to point X and then report, have some findings on that. So I think he did apologize in terms of probably not rapidly responding, but it is a problem that we're working on.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
is there any way we can possibly address the open power boxes? I mean, or instead of,
Yeah, those do pose a threat to the public
Yes.
safety, and we'll ensure we report those.
thank you.
And Ms. Franklin, I also would like to hopefully reassure you that we are lucky that our city manager is also a planner, so he's very good at knowing what questions to ask as he does the investigation to make sure it gets handled. And as he pointed out, still in the warranty, they're still in their warranty period, so we have to give them a chance to correct. You're a very important part of that process, you and your neighbors, because if y'all are helping us identify those problems, we can make sure we hold them accountable. It's just, I wish it could happen yesterday, that they were getting everything resolved. And it sounds like there's a process that is moving forward and that Mr. Jorgensen will be in contact with you as the time goes on.
Mayor, I am sorry to say that, they have until the end of July, the end of that warranty period, to cure defect. And that's what we're asking them to do. First, we have to identify the extent of the defects. So that's where we're at. And once we identify those defects and call them to their attention, they're given that period of time. And so they can literally look at Ms. Franklin, and they can look at the city manager, and they can look at the council, and they can say, we'll get to it between now and then. And there's nothing that we can do, to my knowledge, under the law to force them to do otherwise, nor do we necessarily want to. I think what we want them to do in the end is cure the defect.
Unless it's a safety hazard, as Councilwoman Hathaway was
If
pointing out.
it's a safety, that's an immediate action.
Okay,
And
thank you.
Councilwoman Holly, I think, wants to be recognized.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Jorgensen, there is a bond that was set up for this subdivision, correct? As we do. So what that simply means is that at the end of the warranty period, if they have it, that's fine. We've had children.
Well,
We
no
know
kids.
they're good. They're good. But if these defects, what that simply means, if the defects and the issues are not corrected by the home builder, the city can pull down off bond and have those corrected through the city. So rest assured, one way or the other, with or without cooperation from the home builder, the city will have the funding to fix the issues that you're inquiring about. But we have to wait until after that warranty period.
And having that information is good because, you know,
Yeah.
like I said, for us, we're not wanting them to rush. But if
Right.
we look back at even when I lived there was
Right.
a big drop off in the back so
Yeah.
that the water could run off.
Exactly.
So why would we build on top of that if it was necessary before?
And so even when I was campaigning last fall, and I went through, and I think I met you, and
Yes,
and
ma'am.
while I was in there, I saw that the pond, the retention pond, that was actually part of Phase 1, was overgrown, and I called the Public Works Director, Mr. Cook, and he took care of that. So if there's issues that we can see that we can handle right away on our own, we will do that. But Mr. Jorgensen, I mean, when it comes to the maintenance periods and all that, there is a bond, which is a pot of money, that it will get fixed one way or the other. So just please be patient with Mr. Jorgensen, and it'll get done, okay?
I appreciate it.
Please keep the flow of information coming, because if you're helping us identify the defects, you can help us hold them accountable.
I will, and I'll send the pictures like I said, I've been there before they started building, and you can see the drop-offs that were clearly dug out so the water would run.
Right.
And my land is flat, and the homes next door to me, literally their car is like this. So, I mean, you can see it from standing there. So,
Are there any other comments from council? Not everyone here has spoken yet. Councilman Powell, Councilwoman Smith?
I think everything was covered. I appreciate the information.
thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
And can I just say
Thank
one
you for
thing,
coming.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
I'm Sharon Hawley, and that's Casey Powell, and we are your ward representatives
I'm
for where
aware.
you live.
Yes.
So anytime you want to speak with either Casey or I, or both, feel free to call us, and we'll call you back.
I will, and thank you. And
Okay.
like I said, I'm a citizen that will be active. If there's something needed from me, that's
Yes,
fine.
ma'am.
I have other people on my street, water's coming into their doors. They won't speak up. They don't want to get involved and things like that. So it's not just me and my neighbor. We're here on
Right.
behalf of our neighbors.
Understand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And we have one other speaker form submitted for, I think, Ms. Donatelli and Mr. McCarthy. Pass it down to Councilwoman Rice. Hi,
Hi.
welcome to the city of Milton.
Thank you for having us. My name is Angela Donatelli. This is my husband, Brett McCarthy. We live at 5881 Little Leaf Court. We are here today to follow up the same thing as Ms. Franklin. I would like to start off with a question to Mr. Jorgensen. When you were speaking about, you said, I believe you said first that you were not sure of the findings of that day, and then you followed up with Mr. Jordan. And could you just clarify? Because when I called you, you actually said to me that I was right and that you did see what I said.
Yeah, I saw water pooling. There's no question. There's water standing in the yards. Now, whether or not that water is derived from the property upon which it's found or from adjacent property, I couldn't clearly discern. That's part of the request of a site inspector from Santa Rosa County who possesses the expertise necessary to try to make a more educated or provide a more educated opinion. What I read this evening to the council was the result of that work, and yet it's still not clear. So my position, the position I've shared with the Public Works Director of a couple weeks ago, is I thought we would find ourselves in a place where we'd have to go shoot elevation, literally be able to identify the lay of the land, so to speak. In doing so, we'll be able to identify how that water is shedding off the property, whether it's coming from adjacent properties onto your property or where it's derived from, or whether those swales are working the way they were designed. That's where we're at. I think that's the next step in this process. It's going to require us to go out there and take those shots and make those determinations.
Okay, and thank you. And then I believe it was Ms. Holly who said that the only way to make something happen quicker is if it is a safety concern. Is that correct? Did you?
I think it might have been Councilwoman Hathaway who pointed out there was a safety issue. So in terms of not waiting until the warranty period is up, there's a safety issue with the power boxes. Is that right?
Yeah, Ms. Franklin mentioned that there's like open power boxes, and city manager stated that if it's a safety concern, that they will go ahead and address it now instead of waiting until July. So that is something that we are going to address now.
Okay, so is that now for the community or is that for individual properties as well? Because like we have the black mold and
I think it was just based on what Ms. Franklin said the issues were now, the safety issues.
Okay, so, but if it is actually a safety issue for our individual home, is that something that can be, because our foundation is washing away, like it's starting to, you know, get ruined by the, I guess, lack of drainage. And then with the mold that we accumulate by the poor planning of D.R. Horton, and I know that is not, you know, your issue, but is that something that could be addressed sooner than the end of July, or?
I don't want to hazard a guess, quite frankly, because that's exactly what I'd be doing. I mean, it sounds to me as if your issue is between the home builder and you as a buyer. And the city doesn't have a role in regard to the condition of the home that you purchased and those issues that have surfaced since the time that you've occupied the dwelling. That's just my immediate response. I'll look for input from legal counsel and we'll go from there.
Okay, I'm just not sure who the issue is between, because again, I don't know if the builder is responsible for the foundation issues or if that is, you know, the city, or I don't know who, that's why I'm asking.
Well, the city attorney may have another recommendation to Mr. Jorgensen if they spend some time speaking about it. Do you want to speak to that now, or no? Want to look into it with Mr. Jorgensen?
I would just second what the city manager said. It appears that the issue would be between the homeowner and the home builder,
Yeah.
but we'll look into it and see if there's any role that the city would play in the issues that you just described.
And may I recommend that you contact, and I don't have their number memorized, but the Escambia Santa Rosa Bar Association has a law referral service, and the lady there is named Miss Pat. Last name is not coming to my mind right this second, but she's a wonderful lady. You call that number and ask her, talk to her about your problem. And it sounds like you say you have black mold in your house?
Well, we get it around the window sills, or on the outside, on the windows and the doors, because it's a two-story home, and they didn't put proper, they did now that we had the issue the first time, but since it rains sideways in Florida, you know, the rain comes and just lands right on, it comes off the roof and lands on our window frames. So we get black mold accumulating around doors and window frames, and now this is the second occurrence. When we first moved in, we had the first occurrence, and that's when they added the gutters and the overhang to our back door. But
how did you get them to do that?
Months and months and months of fighting.
Talking to them directly?
Yes.
Okay.
And then they finally came out and fixed that issue because it was a simple fix. Replacing a door, you know, that was a simple fix. They don't want anything to do with this. I've tried contacting them directly.
Okay.
They don't want anything to do with this because of how big of an issue it is. It's not just a simple fix.
Right.
So they, you know.
I would encourage you to call Pat, tell her your situation, and see if she has a lawyer on her list who can talk to you about your options. Because to the extent the city can't resolve it for you, maybe a letter from a lawyer to D.R. Horton, lawyer who's representing you, might prompt some response from them.
Brett McCarthy, 5881 Little Leaf Court.
Yes, sir.
The same house. I think the issue is, obviously, we know they're not holding up their end of the bargain. But in the sense, the city is not either. Before these properties are turned over and closed, they have to be signed off on, just like anything else. Part of that step is the city coming out to ensure that everything is in place, or done the way it needs to be. Now, we spoke with several officials from the Public Works Department for the City of Milton. There's been no verification other than simply putting a tape measure from the street to the front of the house, from the front of the house to the property line, just to verify that, okay, this is where it needs to be. That's it. That's all fine and well, but at the end of the day, no one has come in and verified that grade or elevation is where it needs to be. So, I think the problem is, no one is coming and verifying other than the builder saying, okay, this is what was given, we did our end of the deal, that's it. Nobody verifies. Right. Mr. Cook gave us that information that obviously, they come out, whether it be what is the title? Whoever the individual is, whether it be the code enforcement officer or whoever it is that does the sign-offs or the COs for the property. So again, it's more of a drive-by, okay, it looks great, that's fine. Before that second phase was built, we had a 4.5, almost 5-foot drop off. Now, that was all backfilled. It's all been elevated. You can see, obviously, from where we stay on our street, the street behind us is a higher elevation, naturally. So all the runoff, obviously, is going to come our way. When you walk out the neighbor's door behind us, which is also adjacent to their house, the backyard is like a camel hump. It dumps off to the sides and to the back, hits us, hits the neighbors behind, or to the side and to this side. Again, why is there no form set in place for a sign-off or for a builder to say, go ahead, you can sell this home? You know, there's no verification. So again, they sign a paper, that's all fine and well, but now we have problems, and now we have to fight to try and have these problems resolved. We're coming up on heavy rain season. So if this problem doesn't get addressed for another 6 to 8 months, a year, that's more damage we're having to our home. That's more damage to their home.
I think I hear you saying that your concern is with the verification process in terms of what the city is doing to sign off on approving or acknowledging that these homes have been completed.
If I could add to that, so maybe make it more clear, we had Mr. Cook and Mr. Milstead, I believe, is that correct, Tim Milstead?
Tim Milstead.
We had them out at our home when we first realized this issue. So we're maybe the beginning of January, and we were informed by Mr. Cook of this information that my husband just stated. And when asked why, you know, why is it okay that you just take their word, he actually compared it to buying an appliance. He said, when you go to a store to buy an appliance, do you have them plug it in first to make sure it works, or do you take their word for it? In my opinion, and I feel like in anybody's opinion, owning a home and buying an appliance are two very different things. This is the city of Milton versus going to a store and buying an appliance, or D.R. Horton versus going to a store and buying an appliance. The interactions that we've had since it's all been, you know, and we've done what we were told. Mr. Snow told us, and Mr. Jorgensen actually stated as well, that we should try and level out our yard. That is the same as it was when we purchased, except for what has changed due to rainwater and because perhaps it was our fault with a high spot that this was happening to us. So we've actually gone, you know, and leveled it out as best as we could. We've gotten rid of any high spots. We're still having the issue. So we're doing everything on our end to try and ensure that it stops happening, but there's only so much that we can do. And if it helps clarify what he was saying, it was told to us.
Mr. Jorgensen, do you have a comment?
I do. A couple of things. First, everything on the exterior of the walls is something that the city of Milton does, in fact, look at. We determine that the floor plan is the floor plan that was provided to the department to ensure the house that was built is in keeping with the site and the situation. The house is built on the lot in the area that was identified in the plan. That it's addressed appropriately, that the driveway slopes properly, that the curb cut is done in accordance with those plans, et cetera, et cetera.
That's something the planning department does?
That's correct. Everything inside the walls, the electrical, framing, foundation, plumbing, et cetera, is an interlocal agreement with Santa Rosa County, and they conduct those inspections. They do that on behalf of the city, but they do that. We do not. We do not have the economy of scale to warrant the investment required to employ the individuals who provide those skills. Therefore, we work through the county for that work. So as it relates to the lay of the land, that is a responsibility of ours. We're at a point where, as I indicated, we'll go shoot elevations. They're in the same situation as Ms. Franklin. So we'll try to make a determination as it relates to that. If someone wants to look at the inspections that were conducted on their property, all of those inspections are online. They can go to the Santa Rosa County website. They can go to the building department. They can pull up their address, and they can look at all of the inspections that were done when the home was being built.
So when they're talking about the verification that was made, that's the inspection that your planning department would have done, right?
Well, verification as to is the house where it belongs to be? Now, we don't do necessarily whether the drainage swale will function in accordance with the plans. It's the site inspector for Santa Rosa County.
And so where is the site inspector for Santa Rosa County's report on that part of the process? Is that available too?
It would be online as well, but keep in mind that we're not done with the development of this subdivision. I mean, all it requires is the builder to indicate we're not finished.
In other words, are you saying that y'all haven't, that the city or the county or both haven't actually verified that their house is according to the plan yet?
No, we know that their house is found on the lot according to the way it was designed and planned. I don't know that the drainage system is functioning the way it was designed to function, and that's really where their issue is found. Inside the walls, I can't speak to whether or not the electrical inspection was done properly, or the plumbing inspection was done properly, or the windows were put in the way that they were supposed to. That's the work of a building official.
And what kind of notification to either Santa Rosa County or to the city from them to D.R. Horton needs to be made so that D.R. Horton's aware of a defect as they're pointing out?
They should point out the defect to D.R. Horton. What happens is, before the house is placed on the market for sale, a CO is issued. That means the house is prepared for occupancy, that it has been inspected by those trades and determined to be in keeping with the plans that were provided and approved. That's the interlocal agreement we have with Santa Rosa County, but those inspections occurred prior to them acquiring the property. You can't sell the property without the CO being issued.
And so is your concern about the CO being issued at all?
Yes, our concern is, now, you say there's a process in order for the home to be turned over and purchased. We understand that, but how are we getting to that point to where that home is turned over without someone physically verifying that those steps, you know, inside the house, plumbing, all that, that's one thing. But, you know, again, you want to go back to saying, you know, it has to be signed off. Like I said, you can pull a tape measure on the house in every direction. But if the house is not sitting at the proper elevation in accordance to the outer lying area, that doesn't mean anything. And now, again, if this one simple step is taken ahead of time to verify before this property is turned over, we wouldn't be here right now, and we wouldn't be, you know, at the expense of, you know, all these issues. So again, I know you say they're not out of this development, but since we've been here last, other properties that they've built in our development have been signed off on.
There isn't a base elevation that's a part of that process.
Whether it be a base elevation or not, I'm referring to it being, there's a plat or a plot, whatever the exact term is, that has to be followed. No one verifies that that's followed. It's their word, which is all fine and well until you have an issue. We have an issue now, and now it's ongoing. Now it has to be a fight on our end and your end as well to get this problem rectified.
Sir, what you've described is true to a certain point, and that is that plat has not been accepted. That's what I was saying.
Ours has not been accepted?
If you're in phase one, that plat has been accepted.
We're in phase one. Our house was built in 2015.
That plat was accepted. In fact, that work was done. That plat was approved prior to my arrival at the city, and there's no one sitting in the front of this room that was here at the time that occurred. I apologize for that. I hate to atone for the sins of the past. That plat is not something, quite frankly, that I would have found to be acceptable. If you look at phase two, you'll see that there are a number of changes in regard to both phases of that project. And those are based on recommendations, frankly, I made to the council that was present at the time. And those address some of the deficiencies that are found in phase one from my perspective. But as it relates to those specifics, I can't speak to them. I wasn't present at the time that work was conducted.
How long have you had this house?
I'm sorry, I didn't see who spoke.
It was me. Sorry.
We moved in at the very end of July of 2015. And now again, we're interior issues, you know, that's something else. But this again, like I said, I don't see why there is not someone who's on the development, you know, division or, you know, building department for the city. Why isn't there someone who is able to shoot elevations and verify?
Because elevations aren't provided. That isn't something that we verify. So we don't have anything to verify.
So then how do you verify the plat or the plot? How are you signing off and
Boundary
giving a
lines on
completion
the-
saying that that's followed?
Legal descriptions and boundary lines in the plat that's recorded. And that's what we ver, and the situation of the house on the land, not the elevation of the home or the elevation of the land. The situation of the house on the land. Is the house where it was identified to have been built, is it the floor plan that was proposed? Not the elevation of the foundation or the elevation of the land that surrounds the dwelling itself.
So then would that fall onto Santa Rosa County?
That wouldn't fall onto anyone's specific responsibility, other than when you're looking at area drainage. And the plat that was approved for your home was approved in between 2005 and 2008. And so what someone's looking at from that period of time is an approved plat. Is the home found where it was proposed to be, regardless of the year it was built? And is it in keeping with the plans that were, of the plat as submitted at the time? And the plat simply carves off the lots. That's what it does.
Okay, so then I guess in a whole, what you're saying is no one checks anything. Essentially, if D.R. Horton wanted to put my foundation 6 feet under the ground, that's okay, and no one...
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is...
I just don't understand, again, because when you build a house, you have to make sure, obviously, that it's above grade, and everyone knows we have quite a bit of rain. Just in this past December, which is an off month, we've had, almost 20 inches.
Let's step back for a second, because one of the concerns I'm hearing is he's in phase 1, so it's a separate situation from phase 2. There's no warranty period. There's no opportunity to get D.R. Horton to correct this.
That's correct.
So that's why, again, I'm suggesting you ask Ms. Pat to refer you to a lawyer who can give you a free consult to see what your options are.
Well,
Because I don't understand enough about this to know why elevation isn't checked. Maybe you can speak to that a little bit more.
Well, a plat subdivides the property. And that's what it does. It essentially outlines and outlays the public and private sectors of a planned project. It doesn't show the elevation of the foundation of the individual homes. And those specifics are not part of a verification process that units of government participate in.
That gets evaluated by the private contractors that actually design and build the home, right?
That's correct.
So, see, because the elevation issues are not actually part of a governmental process of review, it's you're talking about a problem that the law doesn't speak to as far as what the government is doing. That's why I would suggest that you see if you can get a free consult with a lawyer who deals with construction issues, because it's the private contractors who have the responsibility that you're identifying as having been neglected.
And
if you'd like to come in and sit down and I'll pull the plat and I'll show you what was originally proposed to the city. We've got the plat on record. I'm sure I can pull the plat and show you your lot and show you what it is they identified as being the parcel of land that was a part of your purchase. Further, we can look at the floor plan that they developed and the situation of that plan on the land and verify that that's there. But beyond that, we don't, and no one is necessarily responsible for going out and looking at whether or not the situation of your home on that land is different than what it is at the time of your purchase, or shouldn't be. I mean, the other part of this is it is a contractual relationship between you and the builder, and your objection is actually with them. We will do, and I'm more than willing to sit down with you and work through that approval process and show you how that occurs. And if we find something that becomes a point that's defensible from our perspective, I'll be happy to take that on. But we need to work through that process as a part of what you've expressed. I just don't think you're going to find something that is actionable on our part.
And it's a great process for you to do with Mr. Jorgensen, because that information you obtain in that meeting may be useful to a lawyer that you do consult with about this. Those would be tools, those would be items of information the lawyer would be very interested in.
And those steps, are in the works. 1 second, Mr.
Mr. Cook, yes, sir.
Correct.
This is all related to this lady's issue right here. They live finally
Oh, that's good to know.
Other than their yard inside the house, and they have to fix the downspouts themselves. Their downspouts run out on the ground, and it's eroded some underneath the foundation of the house. So that part they have to fix. But the same issue is tied to her issue.
Because it's interrelated, just to repeat some of what you said, Mr. Cook, I won't be able to repeat it exactly, but since you didn't have a microphone, it sounds like the issues are interrelated. So to the extent D.R. Horton is going to make good on the things it's supposed to do by July, as we've already been discussing, then the fix that will help the Franklin family may very well be what helps you. But in the meantime, I still would consult with a lawyer about the private contractors and whether they breached any duty.
We're absolutely, going to take those steps further. Their home as well is not in the latest phase. So if I'm correct, I believe they're out of that warranty period as well.
They're in the first phase as well.
Now,
I thought they were in phase 2.
No, they live behind us, but they were the one house on the street behind us that was built in phase 1. On the ends of every street going down the line is phase 1, and then every other home in the cul-de-sac is phase 2.
That's correct.
Okay.
so
Okay.
we're
So we're all out of warranty.
why we're the same issue, we're not the same issue. Our properties sit diagonal from each other now. Our hopes are that you as the city will step in and no longer continue to sign off their properties that they're building in our development. Because again, now
more they're
there's
building-
one left in our development. They pull out, we're 3 phases in, we're in the first phase. We don't stand a chance with anything. So we're hoping that because you have to physically sign off and release these properties in order to be turned over, that you can say, look, you didn't hold up your end of the deal. There's some problems that need to be addressed. We need to have those addressed before we can turn over this development and have your hands free and clear of these issues.
I think we have an understanding of what you're asking for, and I think it's going to require some more study and discussion. And
But as it relates to his latest statement, we will absolutely ensure that they do exactly what they're prescribed to with the agreements we have in place. And a part of that, if in fact it is not functioning properly from a drainage standpoint, is to correct that deficiency. That's a material deficiency. So I would ask you to set up a time, get a hold of Ms. Haddon. She'll be happy to put you on my calendar. I'll put the right people in the room, and we'll go through how you got to where you're at. And that'll be helpful to you from a variety of different ways. But let us do that. And at the same time, we will do what we do. We will hold D.R. Horton on the phase that has not been accepted. We'll hold their feet to the fire.
So now, like we said, not to drag this out, but there's one property left, and they're 100%. That is the third phase. Again, we're the first. Do you have the power, instead of, you've recently signed off on the other 2 remaining properties? Do you have the power to not sign off on that last remaining property if they don't fix our end of the deal?
That's a question of law.
Okay. So then essentially, when they get to the point to where they're ready to turn over that last property, you just go out and sign off and...
That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is if my legal counsel at some point indicates to me that I do have the power, I'll utilize that power if counsel feels it's appropriate.
Well, absolutely. I was just, in retrospect, if they call tomorrow and say, we need a sign off, are you going to go out and sign off on that
Now,
property?
first I'm
before-
going to get an opinion from my lawyer.
Okay.
Who's over there shaking his head, okay? Mr. Andrade's listening.
Okay. No, well, again...
I just want you, he's in the room.
Well,
Okay, so-
absolutely.
okay.
And we're
Just
just,
checking.
we're trying to have the problem fixed, that's all.
I understand.
And,
we appreciate the sense of urgency, but at this point, we really have to evaluate this with council, and we invite you to sit down with Mr. Jorgensen. I don't think we can accomplish anything more tonight on this problem. And I hope you feel heard, but you will also be heard when you sit down with Mr. Jorgensen and he takes you through the process. So I'd ask that y'all give us some time to work on it, and we have other business we have to conduct tonight.
Yes, ma'am. Are we able to set up, can we call directly to your cell phone? Because I know when I tried calling you through Pam a couple times, it was very difficult to get in
You
touch
can
with you.
call directly to my cell phone. In
Okay.
fact, just leave me a voicemail. That's the best way to get to me.
My email is hlindsay@miltonfl.org, If people feel like they're not getting responses, copy me on your email. I will help you. But let's move on. We can get these problems solved, but it takes time. It takes a process, and I appreciate y'all being here, but we really have some other business we have to get to tonight.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We appreciate your time and your help.
I don't have any other speaker forms, so we're going to move to our action items. We have 9 action items tonight, I believe. And I already had calculated all 9 of those would take us an hour. And we have more to do after that. So the first item is, and this will be a lot of going back and forth if we go by virtue of the chairperson for each committee. We can do it that way. Councilwoman Holly, you have the first item, item 1208.
Thank you, Thank you, Madam Mayor. On the Milton Planning Board, we do have a vacancy in Ward 4. And it states in your package, there is a vacancy on the Milton Planning Board in Ward 4 that needs to be filled. Staff has received a qualified applicant to fill this vacancy. And in your packet, you will see that the person, excuse me just a moment.
Would you like me to speak for you? I don't mind.
You don't mind?
I'd be happy to help.
Thank you.
So on this item, there is a qualified person who has made an application. I've reviewed this resume and all the paperwork attached. I trust the rest of council has done so and sees that this applicant is currently employed with the Santa Rosa County Property Appraiser's Office, which is a wonderful background for this role. She has listed her education and experience in her resume, and I suggest that we
Mayor, I'd like
have
to
a
make
motion. Yeah.
I was going to say, move approval, second.
Thank you. So I think we have a motion from Councilman Jordan, second from Councilwoman Smith. If there's no discussion, let's vote. Oh, I'm sorry. Her name is Kathy E. Ellis.
Yeah.
She is a graduate from Milton High School. She works for Santa Rosa County Property Appraiser's Office at the time. And I'm sorry, since Casey is not, he had to step out.
He may have gone to the Low-Income Housing Committee meeting.
He did.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Councilwoman Hathaway. Councilman Powell said he would come back. He's checking in with Jenny, the staff person who's overseeing that meeting, which he's missing because of this timing here. Okay, so this has been approved. Councilman Powell is outside of the meeting at the moment, so I will pick up item 1202. Councilman Powell's item is the budget planning calendar for fiscal year 2019-2020. A proposed budget planning calendar is provided for review and approval. It's been recommended that this budget planning calendar be approved. Do I hear a motion?
Make a motion. Calendar be accepted.
Motion from Councilman Jordan, second by Councilwoman Johnson. Please vote if there's no discussion.
Mayor, if I could, I wanted to take the opportunity at this time to introduce the council to Brook Creek.
Oh, great. Brooke, please, would you like to come up?
Actually, I'd like to see Brooke stand up and come to the
I would
podium
I
to
would
be
too.
introduced to the council. Brooke is the budget analyst for the city of Milton.
God bless you.
Brooke has approximately 8 years of experience in municipal finance. She is a CPA who is currently working on her master's degree, has an undergraduate degree, and has tremendous knowledge of the subject matter. I was lucky from my perspective in the hiring process. I think we have chosen well, and her work for the city for the last approximately 60 days has demonstrated that that was a good assumption on my part. So Brooke's office was the office that Diane Ebenthaler had occupied. If you come to City Hall and you have a question on the budget, you can see me or see Brooke, and she has an intricate working knowledge I wanted you to have an opportunity to meet her, befriend her if you would, please. Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
Welcome.
Welcome, Brooke.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Glad you're
Very
here.
good.
And can you tell the council your whole name is so cool?
Oh, my whole name is Kristen Brook Creek, and I go by Brooke, so my name is Brook Creek.
Brook Creek.
I have my
That's just
husband-
neat, I think.
Yes, thank
And
you.
do you have a bubbly personality?
Thank you. I have my
Thanks for
husband to
being
thank
here.
Thank you.
And so I think the votes are locked except for Heather's. Councilwoman Hathaway, thank you. That is approved. Councilwoman Smith, would you like to address 1215?
Yes, ma'am. Milton High School stage rental. The boosters would like to rent the stage for their annual crawfish boil. Yay. Move approval.
Second.
A motion from Councilwoman Smith, second by Councilwoman Johnson. If there's no discussion, please vote. It's already been approved. I guess. Let's
I
see
think
here. No,
she's- you like crawfish.
it wasn't cleared. Okay, here we go. And
Okay.
we're just waiting on Sharon Holly.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought.
That's okay. I spoke out of turn because it
didn't
wasn't
clear.
cleared yet.
There we go.
All right, approved. And Councilwoman Hathaway, 1205.
Yep, dispatchers recorder training, records training, I'm sorry. This is a request to send dispatcher Larry Schaefer to the I can't talk tonight. Florida Police Records Management Training. This training topics for this seminar are dealing with the public and exempt type records, copy of records, law and statutes, where to go if you have questions, applicable fees, sealed and expunged records, and retention destruction of records. And I'll put this in the form of a motion.
Second.
Second.
Motion by Councilwoman Hathaway. The first second I heard was Councilwoman Smith.
That's fine.
Just because I'm louder, Sharon.
If there's no discussion, please
I
vote.
won't argue.
I know you won't. I doubt anybody will.
Unanimously approved. 1207.
Training 2019 Florida APCO Conference. This is a request to send dispatchers Katina McDaniels and Blakely Hutter to the 2019 Florida APCO Conference. This training is scheduled for April 29th through May 3rd, 2019 at the Daytona Beach Hilton, located at 100 North Atlantic Avenue, Daytona Beach. This training topics for the seminar are procedures related to answering 911 calls, dispatching public safety units, leadership development, and how new technologies will impact 911 operations, cybersecurity, and many others. The cost is $1,808 plus fuel, and I'll put that in the form of a motion.
Second.
A motion by Councilwoman Hathaway. We'll do this second with Councilwoman Johnson. If you don't mind, Councilwoman Holly.
I don't care.
And if there's no discussion, please vote.
Tell them they can't have any fun. I'm just kidding, Chief.
I'm going with them.
Our next item is the garbage exemption. Since Councilman Snow is not able to be with us, I'll introduce it. 1184, description. Currently, council approves garbage exemptions for financial or physical hardships. Staff would propose the action be an administrative task. Physical hardships would require a doctor's indication of need. Financial hardship will be based on demonstrable need from a variety of sources. The staff is awaiting council direction on this item.
May I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
What kind of, I guess this is yours, Mr. Jorgensen, or someone in finance. What kind of demonstrable need are you looking for? What kind of verification would you like?
Well, I think that there are a number of ways that can be achieved. Some of them are hard, some of them are soft. By that I mean tax returns are one way. I don't know that is necessarily necessary in many, many cases within the city of Milton. The clerk has got tremendous knowledge on the residents of this community, along with the people that she works with, and is in a position to provide us with information as to whether or not that need exists in many cases.
Right.
Where that is not possible, we will find other sources that we can use reliably.
Okay, so I guess my question is the wording of this demonstrable adequate, or do you need it spelled out, or we'll cross that bridge when we get?
I think if in fact there's an individual who believes that they find themselves in that situation and we are not comfortable in making that determination, we will come to council,
Case by case.
case by
Very
case.
well.
Would it be helpful to have a policy on that to guide when you come to council, or,
I think that a policy should be developed, quite frankly.
and then that policy would come back to council for review?
Correct.
Councilwoman Rice?
Right, I think that Gulf Breeze might have a policy in place for that. I am very much in favor of a policy and not having individuals come before council to talk about their financial needs. I don't think that's appropriate.
Let me look at the policy that Gulf Breeze has in place, and I'll be happy to come back to you and report on that.
Don't you think the League of Cities probably has some, like, around to look at?
That's a
I'm
good
sure there's
idea.
several locations who have one. That
Well, we can ask. That's simple enough.
That would be great if you asked. That way you get more than one perspective so that you can see what suits best. And my only concern about this has to do with the doctor's note. I'm kind of worried about people's medical records being city business.
We actually don't want exposure to their medical records. All we're asking for is something from doctor indicating that they believe that it's medically necessary, period.
Okay.
Not the condition, not
They don't
what
have to prove
warrants
it.
it, just,
Okay, great. Any other comments on this? Yes, ma'am.
No, I'm
Councilwoman
sorry, I
Johnson.
was about to make a motion.
Yes, ma'am, please.
I so move that we pass with the language and everything in the garbage exemption.
May I ask that we amend your motion to ask that staff come back with a policy that encompasses these concepts in a way that will guide their discretion?
Certainly so.
Second.
And so we have a motion from Councilwoman Johnson, second by Councilwoman Rice. If there's no further discussion, please vote. Sorry. All right. That is approved. And our next item is item 1203, the band for Riverfest. Main Street Milton is working with the Chamber of Commerce to book a live band to play right before the fireworks. This is basically, again, staff awaits council direction. There's a form attached that shows what Main Street is working on. Are there any council members who'd like to discuss this attachment?
I would like to discuss it.
Councilman Jordan, you're recognized.
This has traditionally been a chamber event. For years and years, the chamber's handled this. They've brought in sufficient numbers of people to fill up our streets in our area. I feel that $5,000 could be used at another event to bring in more people at a different time. We cannot put but so many people downtown, and we already have that many on the 4th of July. I believe that is not money well spent.
So it sounds like your concern is we're proposing to use CRA funds for something that the Chamber of Commerce has previously funded?
The Chamber of Commerce is having the 4th of July event now. This event is scheduled to be between like 6 o'clock and the fireworks show. The people will be in town already for the Chamber of Commerce event and enjoying the hospitality that we provide. This is just a bicycle ride on the back of the Chamber of Commerce. And it actually will probably not bring in any more people than we will already have. Therefore, it's actually not a good expenditure of our funds, I don't feel like.
I don't know where, I'm sorry, I don't know where we would put any more people than we already have at the fireworks.
I feel like that money would be better spent on another event.
I'm inclined to agree with you. Having owned a business downtown and walking every year from my house, I don't even bother to try to drive. And I can walk home too instead of taking a 2-hour trek for 14 blocks.
Yeah, you live close enough. It's perfect for you.
Absolutely. So I'd love to see another fabulous band. I just don't think that's an appropriate time between the boats and Lord knows the cops have their hands full. I mean, I'm sorry, but pick another day, y'all. I'd love to have another great event, but not on 4th of July.
Any other remarks from council?
I just was wondering if they have any bands in mind that for the or for that night.
Thank you, Stephen.
Council, Ms. Mayor. Yes, we have several acts that were already in mind to be able to perform for the event. It was a request that had actually come back from a previous council and actually previous mayor. It was discussed months back to see if there was ever a way we could do something more with the event. And so we were happy to discuss this with Chamber of Commerce. Actually, we met just recently, and they were happy to have our assistance. And so if it's council's direction, though, to move without doing this, by all means, we will absolutely do that. Not a problem.
Thank you for following up on it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments from council before there's a vote on this item? Okay. So do I hear a motion about this item, or or is there no action that's going to be proposed on this item?
I make a motion that we decline this opportunity.
Second.
Okay, a motion from Councilman Jordan. I'll give Councilwoman Holly the second this time. If there's no further discussion, please vote.
I meant to go the other way.
The motion.
It's usually me that does that.
Okay. Can the record reflect that Councilwoman Holly intended to vote with the remainder of us that we're going to decline this opportunity?
Oh, I was saying no to the 5,000, but never mind.
I should have restated the motion because it's hard when you have a double negative.
I'm sorry.
Okay. So the next item is item 1204, the big screen on the Blackwater. Family movie night taking place July 12th, 19th, and 26th, 2019 at the Downtown Festival Grounds. Movies will be the 3 top blockbuster family films of the season. Vendors to be on site to sell food. This is a request to use funds from the CRA of $2,300. And it is a request from Main Street Milton, who's prepared the paperwork. Are there any council members who have comments on this item?
I do.
Who would like to go first?
She can go first.
I was just going to move
Smith.
approval.
Oh, I was just wondering how the family movie night did last year. Did a lot of people come? Like, what was?
Yes, Stephen, you might need to
Sorry,
up
I'm
there.
full of questions.
might need to stay close by, Stephen.
Absolutely. No, I'm happy to answer. Actually, no, the after action report shows that the events have not actually been necessarily that successful. We are continuing the program because as we took office, it was directed that this is an event that the community really wants to see. From the ROI standpoint that we see, it's very subjective to really put the emphasis, is this good for the community? And almost all communities do, the outdoor movie nights. They are successful, and what you get from it, obviously the intrinsic value is, it's great for the kids. It's an opportunity to get outside, be outdoors. We don't necessarily see the turnouts being that great, and I think that's more so not because of the movie itself or the event and how it's organized. I believe the issue we were running into is the atmosphere. Actually, I believe it's actually weather that becomes our biggest issue. The winter events is what was normally done for the fall. It's cold, so people don't really want to come out. And during the summer, the humidity levels and the heat are quite excessive here in the South, and so it does show that it's a difficult time and a difficult program to put on. We are currently in the works right now to determine whether or not we could actually host this event inside the Imaging Theater to try to get it to where it's a joint effort program. Maybe necessarily get out of the heat and try to be inside where somewhere it's air conditioned. Costs, of course, though, for renting the facility are a little high, so we're trying to figure out how to really necessarily make this work. We're open to suggestion and what council would like to see.
I mean, is there any way we can maybe move it up like April or May to where it's not so hot?
Yeah, absolutely. We continued with the summertime because that had traditionally been when. Yeah, but if you would like to move it up to say April, May, we can absolutely do that. You'll still run into the issue, though, that normally the reason why we program this event is because it's a family fun event that can take place when the kids are out of school. So that's usually what we focus with. But by all means, if you would like to see it in an April, May timeframe, I can find dates that'll work for the community.
How does the council feel
I mean,
about
isn't this Friday night? I'm sorry. Isn't it Friday night? Are the kids out of school on Friday night?
Well, so no, but I mean, there's usually a lot of times though activities that'll still be taking place, from sports to whatever may be going on. So we try to make sure it was open for everyone. But by all means, absolutely, we work at council's direction. You tell me what you'd like to do.
What's the day of the week of July 12th, 19th, and 26th?
I actually don't have that information from me. I apologize. It may be a Saturday. There we go.
Saturday nights.
Yeah, Saturday nights. So, but we can find time to try to make it work to where it doesn't conflict with other events that are taking place within the community. So that way we're not.
Councilwoman Holly, you recognized?
Yes, 3 movies for $2,300. I mean, that's like $800 a movie.
So you have to take consideration it's $585 for a low-level movie. We are looking to try to hit the largest blockbusters at that time because that's usually what the kids are going to want to see. Those rates usually have a tendency of fluctuating from the $585 anywhere to up to a $635. We know that we can keep it under the $2,300, but we'd like to put in the $2,300 just in case we have to be able to pay for if I need to put it inside the Imaging Theater or whatever it may be. So
But that was going to be my question: is where does the $2,300? How did that get spent? And you're saying it's because of the cost of those of getting those films.
Correct. You have to pay for the
shown.
licensing.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
The
copyright
licensing
law states that you have to pay for the licensing for all that. So $585 is the standard film rate. But it can fluctuate depending on the movie. And of course, if it is a new release or a blockbuster hit, the summertime rates do increase at that point in time. So the $2,300 doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to spend all that money, but it's to ensure that we don't go over that rate.
So it would not be more than $700 a movie, you think?
I can't speak to that because, like I said, it can be subjective to the film itself and if it was a giant blockbuster hit. But it's always going to be under $800, at least from that's what the funding, the amount that we've seen. It's normally been under that.
I would like to see some paperwork on the type of movies and the cost.
Yeah, projected budget would be proposed. Right now, as it stands.
I would like to have, an estimate from whomever you're going to rent.
We rent through Swank Motion Pictures, and like I said, we won't know until the films are released. Swank Motion Pictures is who we actually have our account with. We won't know, like I said, the price, of course, until the movies are released. So if it's a summertime event, those rates will be subjective, of course, to the season that it is in. And then I won't know what that summertime rate is until I get close to that position in time.
I have a suggestion.
Councilman Jordan, I think, asked to be recognized first, and Councilwoman Hathaway.
When I looked at this, I see that you asked for the $2,300, and I look at the expenses, and I see that you only have $1,253 worth of expenses for the actual that are actually listed on your event form. And I realize now that you discussed this, that the other expenses are going to be for the movie rental or whatever you want to term it. But I think that for clarification, that needs to be expressed some way on the event form, not just left that we're going to spend this much money for something else. I think that the event form needs to include all of the expenditure you're asking for. And if you have movie costs that are going to run $500, that you estimate it, that be the cost, and estimate what your final total is. I don't like passing something that leaves finances unestablished.
And we will make sure that we make that adjustment. The form, unfortunately, doesn't provide enough detailed information for us to be able to put that in there. The agenda analysis was created to establish that these are the rates we know from past where we'll be at. We had put in there that in case something else was to happen, we will not exceed the limit that is at that point. But right now, I can tell you we can always complete it under. So at $585 for a standard rate. It just is subjective.
I'm sure that you can add a comment on the form somewhere so that we know what that other money is going to be spent for.
We'll take a cover page.
Yeah, you could, if there's anything that you anticipate council will question as far as the basis for the expenses, just feel free to leave us a comment. I know the form is limited. I just was looking and saw there's no.
Normally there'll be a projected budget, and when I came back from Leadership Santa Rosa today, I went to my computer to click print to get my reports, but my computer didn't print today, so.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Stephen.
RC.
Was there, Councilwoman Hathaway, I think, had a comment, and then Councilwoman Johnson?
Yes. Or either put a note, see attachment, and you can have your page by itself. That would
yes, ma'am. Like I said, unfortunately, my printer didn't print, so I don't have my report with it. But however, yes, absolutely, we'll make that adjustment.
Councilwoman Hathaway?
I think that we should revamp this a little bit. Maybe focus on, I know that like downtown Pensacola does something similar to this, because I've been to one. They host theirs at the little Sanger Theater. What if we focused on having this at the Imogene Theater and maybe charge like $5 a ticket or something? Because I know when we went to the one at the Sanger Theater, they did charge for tickets.
Sure. I mean,
And that would,
at council's direction, I'm happy to move in whatever direction you direct me to.
Just to remind everybody, Councilwoman Smith had moved approval of the item. I hear Councilwoman Hathaway asking, I think, for an amendment of that motion. Are you open to an amendment of the
there was
motion?
never a second.
There was never a second.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I spoke too soon, but I have
Okay.
no problem with her amending.
okay.
I mean, I just want to see how the council feels about it before we put into a motion, just discuss it.
Yes, ma'am. And
Yeah.
I was just making sure everyone knew
Okay.
where we were.
Yeah, okay.
So what I hear you saying is asking to amend that motion, or else the motion will fail for lack of a second, which is fine. But I just want to know, what's our action? What are we going to do, council? Yes,
Yes.
sir, Councilman Jordan.
Ms. Smith, did you withdraw your motion?
Yes, sir, I shall.
I would like to make another motion then, that you resubmit this application and we'll fill it out in full and include what Ms. Hathaway is asking you to, in fact, take it.
Second.
Okay, so we had a motion from Councilman Jordan that Main Street Milton go back, provide more detail in its application, and respond to the requests and suggestions of Councilwoman Hathaway. That motion was seconded by Councilwoman Johnson. If there's no further discussion, please vote.
I would like to
Oh,
say that I
yes,
would
ma'am.
like to have in that motion as well as I had just have asked Steve for, I'm sure these film companies, movie companies, whatever, they have a basic charge. They know what they're going to charge in the summer. Call them and get them to print out what the movies are going to actually cost instead of us going on an estimated budget.
So
on that.
we are in communication with Swank Motion Pictures. We actually have a representative. She tells me, though, that unfortunately the rates won't be released until she tells me when they're released. But we will be happy to get that full report and provide you with absolute details, so that way it's straightforward.
I find that very difficult, that they don't know how much they're going to charge for their movies, and we're almost at spring now, so she need put something in writing to us.
I will absolutely get it.
Based on Councilman Jordan's request that you have a more complete package of information, which I think incorporates Councilwoman Holly's concern that the vendor that you're using is maybe not giving enough information on the front end. If you could please give us as much information as the vendor will allow. I recognize they're probably going to say, hey, we can't make any promises. We don't know what movie's coming out in June. We don't know what we're going to be required to charge. But please give us a range, give us a history, something that gives us a sense of what we're doing. So when the taxpayers ask us questions, we can tell them, yes, we did our due diligence. So thank you.
Absolutely.
So if there's no further discussion, let's vote. That motion is approved, and item 1204 will come back to us. The next item is 1206. It's an item for discussion. It's a purchase of 2 vans for the landscape department. Mr. Jorgensen, would you give council the history? Would you remind, or maybe Mr. Cook's going to talk to us about it. Thank you, Mr. Cook.
He's
Mr.
gonna
Cook
plead
is
his
going to
case.
talk about it.
It's my baby, so he made me do it. What this is we only have one CDL driver with the prison, the guard. We have 2 buses, and it requires a CDL with a bus endorsement. We have 1 small van, and right now we don't have a guard that has a CDL license, so we're trying to cram 2 crews into the 1 van and get them transported over here. Now, we're only getting 2 crews, and what you see, we're budgeted for 3. This crew here was budgeted, but we cannot get them because we don't have a driver. So what we're asking is to do away with the buses and buy 2 12-passenger vans, which I have priced at about $15,000 a piece per van with less than 100,000 miles on it. So from our budget year for 1 guard is $57,497. We've used $3,300 of that to hire somebody to mow the cemetery twice. And So that's the $3,300 you seen subtracted from it. If we bought the 2 vans for the $30,000, and then they say in July we can get the other officer. So for the other officer from July to September would be $9,810. We would have a remaining balance in that officer's money of $14,387 with the purchase of the 2 vans. You understand that, or did I confuse you a little more?
I think we understand. I just had a question. For purposes of the services being provided by the inmates, is there an agreement with any other agency that we have to abide by as far as security? I mean, is it okay to use the vans as opposed to the bus, or how's that going to impact, if at all?
The vans will be parked at the prison each night. The guard will drive it here every day and then back to transport the prisoners back every night.
Any questions from council on this?
Does anybody have any heartburn over the vans being housed out at the prison instead of on our property? Just asking. It's probably as secure or more secure than what we have here.
They actually have to be
No
secure.
offense.
Would
Joe?
the only use of these vans would be to transport the prisoners then?
Yes, ma'am.
For purposes of security?
Yes, ma'am.
So we couldn't use them for anything else because that
Oh,
would...
we can. Yes, ma'am. We can.
If we did, though, would it negatively impact the security concerns?
The only thing it'd impact, if we pulled them off the prison and used them for something else, we wouldn't get that crew that day.
Yeah, once they're exposed to potentially being contaminated before prisoners' use, they have to be inspected, and it has to be determined that they're viable again for transportation purposes. Other thought on the vans, quite frankly, where we've been talking for a long time about transportation for seniors in and around the community center. And if this works, this may be, if the vans wouldn't work, or if this does work, first, we're saving money in the long run on just the prisoners. And if it doesn't work, the vans would then be available to maybe initiate a transportation program to move seniors from the surrounding area to the community center for the new mill site. I'm thinking about, what are the options here? How can this work? I think it's a good idea. And in fact, if the vans work well, you may be coming back looking to purchase a 12-passenger van for the purpose of transporting seniors. Let us see how that works.
So if the vans are not being needed for transporting prisoners on a particular day, they could be used to transport seniors?
They could, and that's what I'm thinking about. We may end up wanting more than 2 and rotating them.
And of course, they could... Yes, ma'am. Go ahead, Councilwoman Johnson.
And the vans would be equipped with radio and all of that?
No, ma'am. They wouldn't be equipped with no radio.
The guards have constant communication.
Right. They have communication direct with the prison. They have communication with us.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Do we have to pay to secure these vans as far as like the equipment inside, since inmates are going to be inside the vans?
No.
Okay.
Councilman Jordan.
What type of guarantee are we getting on these vans? They've got 100,000 miles on them. Do we get a guarantee when we purchase these?
It just gonna depend on what you buy, what we find to buy. I've looked them up, in the area within Mobile radius here, and we can get vans with 60,000 miles on them for about $15,000.
Oh, excuse me. I thought that you already had picked out. This way that you talked about this, it sounded like this is already budgeted money. This is not new expense. Right. Is that correct?
Yeah,
okay.
It was budgeted for the salary for the prison guard, which we didn't get. We only got 2. We're budgeted for 3.
Thank you, Mr.
So
Cook.
it's the salary for the other guard.
So the funds are available, and it's just a different use than
That's
what
correct.
we'd originally thought. So it sounds like this is an item that, if council approves, it would have some continued work, and then would there be some later date where the actual purchase would be approved after?
That's correct.
So it sounds like what staff is looking for is for council to say, yes, keep proceeding with this plan, and then come back with the vans you want to buy.
That's why it was here for discussion. We're looking for direction.
I'll
Don't
make a
require a
motion.
bid or anything like that?
I'll make a motion that
I'll second it.
Yep.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilman Jordan, a second from Councilwoman Hathaway, and I believe there would be bids considered, Councilwoman Smith. Is that right? We look for the lowest bid, I guess?
Yeah, we'll approach the purchase of the vans in keeping with our procurement policy.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. If there's no further discussion, please vote.
That was for our studio audience.
Good.
We take a 5 minutes.
Let's take a 5-minute break. Reconvene at 7:15.
Thank you. On. A lot of. Yeah. Yeah, that's
Stand with the tie and the white shirt. Don't need to.
he's a good guy. He'll only shoot you twice.
It's good that you didn't know him yet, right?
Don't even cross.
Oh, I'm not forgetting. Okay. I won't forget. I got it written down.
Okay.
It'll help me out. Hey, neighbor. Okay, that's right. Yes. I'm about to ask. Oh. Ask if it works on her magic. Quick. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Hi.
So you know we have all of our.
Amorous, yes. Fun. both. That's whatever. Fighting off stuff. They didn't have. So. Yeah, but. Yeah, I'm probably gonna go with that backslash. Word. I haven't. But I'm. Hard to. Project. From the package I got. So I've had to. Yes. I don't know what it's. Oh, so my plumber can. I haven't. There's a good. God. But hard out. That's just got me set up. Back. Box. Back. There it goes. Back in. Yeah. Well, Mary and I are not enough to conduct the business. Luckily, Heather's coming back. And
All right, come on in. Come on, Peggy.
yeah.
All the troopers.
Yeah. Fortunately, they're close by. I think they're hearing that we're wanting to get back in business.
Coffee? Of course he is. Woody Courtlow?
We're reconvening this committee of the whole at 7:18, I think. So we're pretty close to where we wanted to be. And at this point now in the agenda, before we get to information items, we're going to take up the items that council asked to be added. There were 3 items left to still be discussed. One is from Councilwoman Rice concerning Tuesday meetings. Would you like to address that now, Councilwoman Rice?
Yeah, I just wanted to, I made up a calendar here, kind of based on how it is right now, and, you know, I didn't bump that up exactly against our calendar, so don't use this as a replacement calendar. I just went with the third Thursday, the first Monday, and the second Tuesday, and projected it out here. And then I projected what it would look like if we had meetings on the first 3 Tuesdays. Opposed to that, I attached notes on the proposed calendar with what I consider the pros of this. I didn't personally come up with any cons. I also talked to city manager to see if he had anything that would be a con about this. But ultimately, I mean, it would be up to council. So you would have to look at it and see if you have like this doesn't work with your schedule, or maybe you decide that it works better.
Thank you, Councilwoman Rice. I remember when you first brought this up that, you know, it was hard to, see how to map it out. Thanks for coming back with more information. Since some of our council members are not here right now, I would suggest that everyone have a chance to review your detailed notes, and at executive, it be taken up for discussion. or maybe at the next committee of the whole, depending on how much discussion's required?
Whenever the council wants to. I just wanted to show it, see if they just kind of wanted to see it.
I like show and tell.
Yes,
do too.
visual aids are really helpful. Thank you very much. I believe Councilman Jordan and Councilwoman Holly had something to add. Let's go to Councilwoman Holly's because I think it'll be quick. The update on the flooring, I think, was your item.
Yes, ma'am. The council did vote to have the front main entrance and the two wings replaced, and I remember that we did get several meetings. We had a bid in our package for vinyl or tile, and I don't think we've ever taken a vote on which one we're.
Yeah, actually, we got bids on 3 different things: vinyl, tile, and carpet.
Yes.
And carpet was the least cost alternative. Tiles, what I would consider to be a rather slippery surface. That is a concern I have. Vinyl, I don't know that, quite frankly, it would be as attractive as just recarpeting those areas. So it being the least cost and I think the most viable of the 3 alternatives, that would be what I would recommend. And if council would provide us with that direction, we'll be happy to get those areas recarpeted.
I think vinyl is also slippery, and it's noisy also. I think that everyone would be shocked at the noise level if you took that carpet away. And slip and fall is like a reality here in Rainville.
If I recall correctly, I think, and Joe can straighten me out if I'm wrong, but I think we were in at carpet at about $8,000.
What type of carpet is it?
I can't answer that question off the top of my head. I didn't go out and look at specific samples of carpet, but I know that we had them come in with a commercial grade carpet that would have a long life and serve the need well.
Does council want staff to come back with more details about the possibilities of carpet or vinyl flooring, the costs and the ideas, or no?
I don't.
Okay. So you're saying we don't need to make a change? Is that right, Councilwoman Smith?
If he needs to replace it, I think we should cough up the money. I don't think that it's worth going to the time and trouble to get other bids for other floor surfaces. I think we should stay with carpet. That's my opinion.
And Councilwoman Holly, are you wanting to get more information to see what other options there might be besides replacing the carpet?
Carpet's fine with me. It just something, they're not there long enough. I don't have a problem with carpet, but you know, there's a range of 1 to 5 on carpet traffic.
How about if we bring in, well, I got too close to the mic, that doesn't happen often. I leaned in a little too far. What we'll do, we'll just bring back some samples to the executive and you can choose.
What if we looked into like the office areas carpet and like this main hallway area flooring? I think that would be attractive looking.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I think it just looked more attractive if there was something other than carpet in the main hallway area.
Well, you can do carpet and still make it, you can do 2 colors of carpet.
Borders.
You can do a border carpet, which would look really nice. But it's whatever the council wants. We just need to make the upgrade.
We need to do it.
It is the main area that we're afraid of as it relates to the type of surface, because that's where the problem would be found. If we had people coming to the counter, to the window, as an example, who slipped on a wet floor, and wet floors are common in Florida. That's
People
where
who
my
make
fears
a living
found.
doing that.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
There is.
I can understand that.
Madam Attorney's laughing because she knows. I didn't make that up. I worked at the hospital for a long time.
At any rate, if I could just recommend, we'll come back with samples at the executive committee meeting.
Thank
Okay.
you, Mr. Jorgensen.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Jordan, Councilman Jordan, you had another item.
Yes, I did. I think it's time that we took up the city manager and planner position. As we saw tonight in the earlier discussion, the planner and city manager are being stretched awful thin, and we've seen Mr. Jorgensen in this position for numerous months now, and know the type of work he's capable of. And I think it's time, even though it's a little premature as far as the end of contract period, I think it's time we went ahead and moved it, because we need both positions filled. We've watched the city progress under Mr. Jorgensen's city manager position, and I think that probably everyone here has seen improvements in the staff. The staff has become much more satisfied, appears like, since Mr. Jorgensen has taken over. There was a lot of chaos prematurely there, and we've seen numerous projects advanced, and advanced well. Now, on the other side of the coin, I have to say that Mr. Jorgensen and I have sat down and had some heated discussions, and quite often we don't see eye to eye. But I've been married 41 years, and I don't see eye to eye with my wife all the time either. But taking all things into consideration, I think it is time to move on this, and I'd like to make a motion that we retain Randy Jorgensen as our city manager and instruct staff to proceed in acquiring a full-time planning director.
I'll second that. I do want to hear how he feels about that, what his opinion is.
The city needs a planning director. If it's council's direction, I will seek to fulfill that position. If it's also council's desire, the city has a city manager.
I just have one thing to add. Would we see the contract first? We see the contract that we'll have.
I believe there is a contract.
Yeah, there is a contract, and the contract indicates that by, I believe, March 13th, at my election, I could determine which of those two positions I would like to occupy. If I chose, with council's consent, to occupy the position of manager, I would continue in that capacity. If I chose to occupy the position of planning director, the council would seek to replace the manager's position. That's what the contract indicates. It would then be the same terms and conditions and extended for a period of 1 year. I'll be happy to bring that back to you.
Because wouldn't it be a different pay, or no?
No, no, it wouldn't be a different pay unless you elected to renegotiate an increase in the annual rate of reimbursement.
I'm in favor of it. I would just like to see a copy of the contract, because that all happened before I was on council.
Yeah, well, I'll be happy to bring that back.
Okay, great.
We have a second from Councilwoman Hathaway. Is there any further discussion on this motion?
The motion is to look at his current contract, and
The motion is to retain Randy Jorgensen as city manager and have staff proceed with the procurement of a full-time city planner.
And that motion was seconded by Councilwoman Hathaway.
This is to move it to executive, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is not any final action, but this motion then brings it forward for council action at the next meeting, which it sounds like is important, because there's your deadline to make your election, Mr. Jorgensen, happens before the next committee of the whole.
No, it actually happens, yes, before the next committee of the whole. That decision has to be made by the council meeting in March.
So your decision is due, and so.
It's imminent,
It is
yes.
Right.
Mayor?
Welcome, Councilman
Hey,
Snow.
sorry I'm running late, everyone.
No problem.
I'm in agreement with keeping Randy. I think he's done a great job. I'm trying to keep him away from his golf game as much as possible, and we'll work hard at that. But of course, we're all working hard to be better, and I know Randy does that too, and everyone on this council. So I appreciate all he's done and all he's continuing to do.
I'm humbled. Thank you all. I'll look forward to the discussion at the executive committee. Mayor, unless there's a objection, if those are the only items that the council had to add, I've got a couple of things I want to mention that.
You need a
We have to
vote.
vote.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He's
We've
getting
had a
excited.
motion and a second, and if y'all want to vote, vote. Unanimously confirmed. And Mr. Jorgensen, you have items to add?
Yeah, I've just got a couple of items of information I'd like to add. The informational items are just that, they're for informational purposes, and they're offered to the council for their consideration. One other informational item deals with the flag on Stewart Street. The city has ordered a 20 by 40 foot flag that's nylon. It's the most durable. It retains its color better than others. We're going to have to get a bucket truck, a lift that can carry us to the 80 feet on the top of that pole. We'll paint the pole, make some improvements, and we'll ultimately hang the flag. We have the owner's consent, so we look forward to that work.
Where's that at? I'm sorry.
That's across from, it's just south and on the west side of Stewart Street from King Middle School. There's a flagpole there that you'll see once you start paying attention for its location, and it's prominent. In fact, it's the highest pole within the city. And that would be a wonderful display coming into Milton because it's right as you enter the community. It's on private property, but we have, again, the owner's consent.
Great.
So that'll be a benefit. One other item, or actually two, I am traveling to Birmingham tomorrow to complete potentially negotiations with the vendor for the splash pad. If those discussions go well, I will be asking that the council hold a special call meeting on Monday evening. I need a quorum, that being 5, for the purpose of potentially awarding that contract. I'll know that by 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. We will post the meeting appropriately in accordance with our procedures. So
Very good.
look for that potentially. And I may go to Havana, Florida next Thursday. There's a meeting of the Water Management Board of Directors. They are going to gift us the easement required for the extension of our pipe across their property.
All right.
In the waters of the state for the purpose of the expansion of our treatment plant.
Excellent.
And we have to make that request in person, so if necessary, I'll be present, and we'll go from there. That's all I have. The informational items are for your consideration. Unless there's questions, that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Would you share with us specifically which legislators we need to ridiculously thank?
All of them.
Not here, not now, but there are no doubt a few who need special thanking.
The thank yous, I think, need to go to the Board of the Water Management District,
Okay.
and I'll get you their information.
Thank you very much. The rest of the items in your packet are for information purposes. I hope and trust that y'all have reviewed them. If you have questions that you haven't already asked, please direct those questions to staff at the appropriate time, but we are adjourned.
I didn't know.
Thank you for letting me, all my pen's in the office.
Moved along pretty quick, didn't it? I appreciate you.
Got it all? About it, flash.
Yeah. Well, I have a comment that I want to make, but
Thank you, my friend. Appreciate ya.
Better come back.
I mean.
Oh, see the text I got, Pam?
What I
See the text I got?
I mean,
From Ms. Bell.
Oh, no, I didn't.
That's, you know, she put herself that way. Be on the way soon. She has directed me, so it's a good thing we adjourned.